and welcome to Death is My Life podcast. I'm your host, Jolene. I want to let you know that this is a re-recording. I heard your feedback about the previous episode being pretty quiet and inaudible, so here we go again, and I hope this episode turns out better than the previous recording. Thank you so much for bearing with me while we work through these technical glitches together. Okay, thank you so much. So today we're going to talk about the origins of Halloween. This is the time of year when the leaves on the trees have quickly cycled through their vibrant yellows and reds and are now fading to dull, dry brown and blowing away with each caress of the wind. The cool air nips at our skin, with the exception of a few midday hours in which the sun makes a short, warm welcome visit before succumbing to the night. At my house, the chickens have slowed down their egg production, the grass goes still and no longer needs mowing, and the sounds of ravens fill the air. When summers start to fade, I feel morning begin, but then the sights of autumn appear, and it assists me through the transition with its peaceful beauty. This is the time of year that Halloween is celebrated. For many, Halloween invokes thoughts of jack-o'-lanterns, costumes, kids trick-or-treating, and scary movies. People love Halloween, acknowledge that it's one of the biggest corporate holidays, and continue to go and have all the best decorations or costumes, get the most candy, and play the best trick. Hollywood always tries to make a new, scarier, more gory movie than last year. But the festival out of which Halloween was spawned was sacred and spiritual. This was called Samhain, and it was a time of honoring ancestors and showing respect for the deceased. Samhain is an ancient Celtic holiday which is filled with representations and actualizations of births and deaths, beginnings and endings. It marked the end of the wheel of the year and the beginning of a new year. It translates literally to summer's end. It was the final of the 3 harvest festivals in the pagan tradition. The crops were harvested and seeds were sown for the following spring. Animal herds were culled in order to feed the community through the winters. In other words, death sustained life, a truth that runs deeply through the natural world. Samhain falls upon the day that's halfway between the fall equinox, which is one of 2 days in the year, which the light and the dark are equal, and the winter solstice, the shortest day of the year. For the Celts, Samhain represented the death of the sun and the end of the light season and the beginning of the dark. It was not viewed as a tragic end or a loss, but part of a sacred cycle. Samhain was also special because it was very spiritual. It was believed that during this time, the veil between the worlds of the living and the dead was the thinnest. Spirits were free to cross over and walk among the living. Families would light bonfires and candles, and they would carve faces into turnips or gourds to make lanterns to guide their loved ones home, and also to ward off reckless or mischievous spirits. In order to provide protection against these wandering spirits, people would also paint their faces with ash or wear disguises made from animal hides. Isn't it interesting that our modern traditions originated as acts of spiritual protection and reverence? Halloween became what it is today after centuries of religious modifications to try to eliminate the pagan beliefs. It was altered in increments over time. When Christianity spread across Europe, Samhain was virtually replaced with All Saints' Day, and from there it evolved even more into the modern-day Halloween, in which the spiritual aspect is faint or non-existent. However, Samhain is kept alive today by modern-day pagans, Wiccans, and Druids who celebrate this as a time to honor seasonal and life cycles, ancestors, and for a time of rest and reflection. While many countries celebrate Halloween on October 31st, countries in Mesoamerica celebrate Dia de los Muertos on November 1st and 2nd. Day of the Dead is considered to be a fusion of the ancient indigenous spirituality, post-colonial Christianity, and rooted in the act of remembering and honoring the dead. This is a colorful celebration in which families create elaborate offerings with food, flowers, incense, and candles lit for their ancestors. Food is prepared and seats at the table are left for the spirits of loved ones. Marigolds are often incorporated into decorations as they serve as a guide for spirits back to the world of the living due to their bright color and scent. Skulls and bones are also used to represent regeneration. Dia de los Muertos origins started with the ancient Aztec festival dedicated to the Lady of the Dead, who ruled the underworld and guarded the bones of the dead. She was not dark or evil. She represented rebirth and protection, ensuring that the dead were honored and remembered. During this festival, people would bring offerings such as food, flowers, and favored items to their ancestors to ensure they had what they needed in the afterlife. When the Spanish colonizers arrived in the 1500s, they considered the Aztecs' beliefs to be pagan, and they tried to replace their belief structure as well. The indigenous practices merged with Catholic observances, and the result was the modern-day Day of the Dead. I think it's powerful to note the similarities in belief structures related to death across these ancient cultures, which existed in a time prior to world travel and even before communication across the continents was possible. Yet these people had the same ideas simultaneously, that death was not an end, but a phase of existence, part of a vast cosmic cycle. Imagine if we all believed as strongly as our ancestors did that death was just a transition time. Would we still experience the pain and drawn-out mourning that is so common in our modern society? It takes repetition and to restructure belief. So I'll be here to share many stories of my own and from guests about our communication from beyond, so we can reframe our ideology together. Together, we transform our grief into belief. Thank you for joining me for this episode of Death is My Life. If you enjoyed this conversation and want to help support the podcast, you can find links to connect with me in the show notes. And as always, may you find peace, magic, and meaning in both life and death.